Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. My name is Sony Huang, and I would like to thank you all for taking the time and a warm welcome to our second webinar series. If this is your second time here, then welcome back. And this is your first webinar with us, then you are in for a great session because today we'll be discussing wireless lighting controls. And we are extremely excited for this special webinar as we are joined by industry leaders in controls and integrations, Avi-on and Synapse. But before we begin, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it on the question and answer chat box located at the bottom of your screen, and we promise we'll get to them through intervals of the webinar, or if we aren't able to, we'll reach out to you after via email. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest speakers today. Hector Gannon, who is the Executive VP of Sales and Marketing, George Rodriguez, our VP of Business Development, Eric Fournier, VP of Business Development at Avi-on, and Michael Martin, Sales Director from Synapse. Hector, take it away, please.
Yes, thank you, Sony, and thank you, everybody, for attending. It's definitely some different times, and we're excited to come through to you, even if it's through virtual. So it's just interesting. I'm out for dinner the other night and I'm thinking to myself, wow, how nice it is to be out to dinner, and how much I miss that, you know. And I coined the phrase before coronavirus, right? So BC used to be so cool. And with the landscape changing and everything that's going on in the world, it's interesting to see how things are also changing in our lighting world and controls, which we'll be talking about today. So I'm excited to have Eric and Mike on to kind of give you a perspective from our end and kind of delve into a little bit of some of the common control strategies that are out there from an interior perspective and an exterior application perspective, and kind of share their ideas as to why and why not as far as wireless technology goes. Before I say that, I'm looking at the list of folks that are on here, and it's just awesome to see some old friends of mine that I've known through the years, and some of the colleagues, and definitely an array of reps, and it looks like some electricians on here. So that's awesome. It's good to have a good array of folks on here. So hopefully you'll be able to glean something from our talk today. So with that being said, we're talking about the landscape changing. I'm going to ask George a few questions, who's joining us here. He's our VP of Business Development. Kind of tell us, George, a little bit about what you're seeing in the marketplace currently, and what you see happening out there.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's great to be able to at least communicate with some of our customers under this forum. Like Hector says, yeah, thanks to guys like Roth for joining us today, our rep out in Nevada, Allen Sales, DBL. There's a lot of companies out there that are showing some interest, and hopefully we can educate you guys a little bit more and show you what Altech and Avi-on and Synapse bring to the table. So to answer your question, Hector, what are we seeing in the marketplace? There is definitely no doubt that the market has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In the beginning, projects that were placed on hold, that goes back to November, but over the last few weeks, we've seen an increase in photometric study requests, so it seems like some of these projects are coming back online now. We've also had a few of these projects that were put on hold back in March start to close here in May. So looking at the foreseeable near future going into the summer months, I feel that we're going to see an increase in business, and so the future of our business looks pretty good. Now, in a broader view, as far as the future of LED lighting, that's where this seminar has brought us here today. Internet of Things and controls has been something that has come up quite a bit in conferences and in conversation with many industry leaders. And so now we're seeing a new phase in lighting where controls and fixtures are working together for energy savings. This is why we felt that now is the right time for us to educate our customers and share how Altech approaches the controls market.
Yeah, the landscape's definitely changing. So it leads me to my next question, which is why Altech and why now?
Well, quite simply, Hector, we feel that Altech is a go-to fixture as we have considered ourselves agnostic in this marketplace. I know that kind of gets thrown out there a bit, but so what does that really mean? Well, in simple terms, guys, that really means that we play well with most controls out in the marketplace, thus allowing our customers to choose a platform that will fit their specific/custom needs. And why now? Well, we are now finally at a stage where it makes financial sense for companies to consider the controls as a way to add additional savings to their lighting projects. Just a few years ago, the control technologies were there, but the cost to the fixtures along with the cost of controls would make it difficult to complete a project that would make sense and provide a reasonable ROI. Now, as the fixtures and controls have come down in price, there is now an opportunity to bring the two together, which brings additional savings to our end user.
That's great, and it makes cognitive sense now as well, and it's definitely playing into the payback scenario. So I guess a question that most people would have is, why wireless and or Bluetooth technology? What's compelling a customer to want to go in those directions?
Well, this is really not an either or scenario. Wireless or Bluetooth technologies are two technologies that on the surface seem to be the same, but in reality, each have their own specific benefits. And fortunately for us, our customers, Altech fixtures are compatible with both technologies. And lucky for us today that we have brought together two controls companies that we partner with, Avi-on and Synapse. Rather than me delve into what they do, I'll turn it over to Eric of Avi-on, who will be sharing information on an interior industrial application, and Michael of Synapse, who will educate us on an exterior commercial application. But before we get started with their formal presentations, I'd like to pose a question to both of our guests here today. Why choose wireless or Bluetooth lighting controls versus an analog control system?
George, that's the great question, and good morning to you, and thank you to you and everyone else at Altech for hosting the event. Quite frankly, George, there are so many reasons. I could spend the entire presentation talking about it, but let me try to get straight to some of the key reasons here. First and foremost, I would say it's imperative to really understand why lighting controls are being used. What problems are we fundamentally trying to resolve with it, and make sure that you match the right technology to the right application, instead of, as opposed to, the opposite, which is often being looked at it. So people look at first technology and then they think application, right? We want to make sure we look at the other way around. But so going back to your fundamental question, George, here, I think that there are driving forces behind the evolution of control, and what makes this evolution going from analog device to smart devices. First, the essence of controls have been, energy savings, right? And over the years, I mean, you've seen evolution from saving, and some of our customers are really wanting to actually refine those energy saving. And so capabilities of systems such as remote device management, where you can actually, from any location in the world, understand what's in your network, fine-tune the settings of your occupancy sensor and other device, so you can actually squeeze more energy saving as play a role in it. But really at the core of all of these, driving forces, I would say building energy code is the number one. They go back to the late 80s. They've been around for a very long time, and over the years, more and more codes have evolved to become a lot more stringent. What started with simple, hey, let's use an occupancy sensor to turn the light on and off automatically, or let's use a time clock for simple schedule. Now you're looking at overlaying, manual switches for a manual on, automatic off sequence of operation, or you're looking at daylighting, plug load, demand response. Some of these what I would say advanced control strategy really forces us to migrate the technology platform to a more advanced platform. More recently, over the past few years, we've seen also utility rebates playing a stronger role, and organizations like DLCs have put together requirement for network lighting control with prerequisite from a system performance standpoint, and there's more, there's higher tiers of rebate associated with network lighting control and more capable systems. So certainly those are important. I said the last two in my mind that play a role there would be the commissioning. Commissioning certainly, can be an important part of the overall cost of the control platform, which may or may not be looked at it up front. But again, if you have to, go and commission thousands of devices at once, walking around or flipping dip switches, that can add significant costs as opposed to the ability to do it remotely. And last but not least, especially with what we've been seeing with COVID lately, I mean, there will be a shift and greater emphasis, in my opinion, with enhancing occupant experience. So human-centric lighting with, things like color tuning, whether it's an office space, a school, an hospital, UV lighting, most recently, I mean, all the posts that I can see it's all about, how do we incorporate UV lighting into the space? And so again, some of these, new, I would say, requirements will migrate the technology platform to more advanced, controls, and wireless platforms are a great candidate to address these needs.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. I have to reiterate exactly what Eric said. I agree with him 100%. We are also seeing a couple trends that are starting to happen in the industry. One is DLC is upping the game dramatically for the higher end rebate. So I think we're able to now, in a lot of cases, actually reduce the cost of the controls and bring the ROI down a little bit because of the rebates that we can now get. The other thing we're seeing is customers are starting to look at can I use the controls as an underlayment for additional applications like IoT applications, both in industrial and in the buildings as well. So the controls become a really nice highway to start adding additional applications on top of just controlling fixtures.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And now I'll pass the stage over to Eric, who will go ahead and give his presentation about Avi-on's technology.
Well, thank you again, Sonny. So I'm very excited to tell you more about Avi-on and sharing with you what makes Avi-on a leader in North America when it comes to wireless lighting control system, and really a disruptor to the lighting control industry in many ways. So let's stay here for a minute. So going back to the origin of Avi-on, the company has been around for over 6 years, and the premise of the system really was around simplicity in many ways. Simple to use, simple to put together a system, to specify, to install, and to commission was really core values to the architecture that was put together, and obviously costs associated with, again, the deployment of the system, the service aspect of the system was essential to a success here. The company is actually based in the United States. We're actually in Park City, Utah, which is a beautiful place to visit. The company is really a turnkey lighting control solution with a hardware platform, software platform, and service at core. One of the things that is different about Avi-on is essentially we are a spin-off of an IoT and cloud software development organization. We have a large group of developers on site. And again, as you're looking at, these wireless technologies, I mean, there's so much that goes behind that secret sauce to make sure that things work well, communicate nicely. It takes a different approach to a development than traditional companies. Another thing that's, very different about the background of the organization is we have large-scale metering and commercial energy management system background and client like IBM and US Navy worldwide. So we understand, how to deploy millions of wireless devices and how to, not only deploy them, but service them effectively for large and medium scale, I would say, commercial and industrial projects. So in terms of, where we play and, I think, again, like anything else, it is absolutely important to understand, what needs do you have and what market you play. There is no silver bullet out there. Let's face it, right? Avi-on's sweet spot is really the mid to large scale commercial industrial, project in nature. We've done a fair amount of successful project with car dealership, healthcare facility, hospital. We actually just deployed, last week, our very first project where we actually controlled UV lighting. And so that's an interesting space as well. Manufacturing, warehouses, retail, and others, recreational center. I mean, you name it. There are real broad range of application where fundamentally it makes sense to deploy a wireless technology. So we have over 300,000 devices in the field and 150 commercial applications. So we have success, we have application. It's been proven to work and work in large scale. But one thing you may not know about Avi-on is we are also the backbone of a residential wireless lighting control system called Hello Home that is offered by Cooper Lighting. And so really, what does it mean? It means that the essence of the platform is a residential platform, meaning you have to make sure that whatever you're deploying is intuitive, easy to use, easy to install when you get it out of the box, that you cannot, stumble and start calling people for help, right? And so it's very important to keep things simple, and that know-how was brought into the commercial industrial space, which is essentially where Avi-on is. Another thing that is important when you consider network lighting control, and in particular wireless system, is how secure is your platform. We all heard about, hey, this client was hacked. And so, make sure that you understand the level of encryption and sophistication of your network, is important. And on our side, we are actually proud of the fact that we are approved by the Department of Defense. And it's, as you know, this is not an easy thing to do. And so great things have been done from an IT security standpoint. And last but not least, what's core to Avi-on is really the technology platform and the fact that we have a, utility patent behind the idea of using a decentralized mesh network that does not use any gateways. So let's look at our architecture, but which is also true for a lot of wireless architecture. So what are the things that you need to consider when you look at network lighting control, so advanced systems? The essence of it is you got to have load controller. How do you control your load? And there are so many ways you can do it. In the case of Avi-on, we have actually embedded a radio chip that actually are designed for either driver manufacturer or fixture companies that design their own driver. We also have a series of fixture adapter modules that ultimately end up being installed inside the luminaire itself. We have different flavors. The one we're showing here actually is actually a 5 amp rated device. It's actually also delivering true power monitoring capabilities as well as color tuning. And so this is a great simple device that, again, we in our partnership with Altech, we would ship the devices to Altech. They would install inside their luminaire. The luminaire would then get on site already control ready. So great device for individual zone control. We also have more traditional load controller and plug load controller. Actually, in the events that we are trying to control a larger group of fixture, and they all control as one group, as opposed to being controlled individually. So this is a 20 amp relay, actually 16 amp rated device. So you can put a full circuit of fixtures in what this actually single device right here. So 0 to 10 volt dimming is the standard protocol that we're using. And obviously, like any system, right, you need to have occupancy sensors. This is your mean of doing automatic on and off, basic way to get the light to turn on and off automatically. So depending on, again, the type of luminaire being used or the need of the project, we have integrated sensor that gets mounted directly into the luminaire. We had what we call more like end cap or high bay type sensors. We have different sensing technologies, combining also daylighting sensing and occupancy sensing, indoor and outdoor, you name it. We have many different flavors to account for the different applications. Wall stations are also obviously very important. Many of the codes out there require a manual on, automatic off sequence of operation for greater energy savings, and also obviously the convenience of being able to do scenes and group fixtures together and bring them to a certain light level. So we have different options, from AC powered wall station to battery powered wall station, as well as keypads that do not have any back box, right? They're really portable in many ways. They're great if you have a partition wall, or if you have, other device where you don't really have any source of power coming into place. And essentially, obviously, the commissioning tool, the app, it's a free app you can download. It's designed for iOS and Android. This is really your mean to provide simple on-site commissioning. And there's a lot of very simple and effective things you can do with the app, and we'll look a little more into it in a minute. So essentially, this is it. This is the architecture of the system in essence, right? But if the project or the customer require to get more advanced capabilities, we also have an optional bridge. And this bridge comes in different flavor. It can be Wi-Fi, it can be Ethernet, or it can be cellular, depending on, again, the need of the projects. But in any in any events, the fact that it is a very IT-friendly option, right? There's no change to the infrastructure of the IT network, make it very easy to deploy and very safe and secure. So this simple device allow you to do things like, well, now I can remotely from anywhere in the world see what's going on in the space. I can group device, I can see the power consumption, I can see what's going on in terms of traffic. And obviously there are other advanced capabilities that comes with it, such as demand response, or the ability to integrate with at the API level. We have a rich open API, and things like BACnet for building energy management, and building BMS system integrations. So, essentially, what is a distributed, mesh network, and what's different about it as opposed to other more traditional network? And I think the essence of it is the fact that, by being fully decentralized and being a true mesh network, there is no gateway in the essence, right? So some networks actually that use gateway, and they're not all the same. So again, it's very important that you dig deeper to understand the differences and the subtleties. That's not easy to find, but it's important to look deep to understand how those function, right? In our case, not using any gateway means each of the devices are smart. There's a clock built into it. You can do schedules without gateways. And also, the way it's designed is the communication is optimized. There is absolutely no latencies. We have projects with thousands of devices deployed, and we'll share with you in a minute some of those and really there's absolutely no need to use a gateway in those projects. And you press a switch and all of these lights come on at the same time. There is no popcorn effect, right? Like you might be getting with some older technology. So it's just it's a beautiful thing to realize that everything, you know, come nicely together. And another thing that's important to look at when there's an architecture that requires a gateway, in some cases, if a gateway goes down for whatever reason, and let's say that gateway control 100 devices, this 100 device may go down, and you may no longer get local functionality in the space. So make sure that you understand also how this gateway operate is very key. So again, no gateway, very simple, very cost effective, and very scalable. We talked about the app. Again, the app is extremely intuitive. Remember, it was designed for the consumer market at first, right? So you can bring in photography to make it easier to identify. You can change the name of the devices. You can group fixtures together, create scenes, schedules, and then obviously make changes to your sensor, occupancy and daylighting sensor. So simple things like, you know, time delays and sensitivity settings, we make it very easy actually to change. You know, we talked about on-site commissioning, which is great. You know, it actually can be very practical, very simple. And in many cases, you know, you may also want to consider the option of doing remote commissioning. I mean, just look at the time that we're living right now. It's actually very difficult and challenging to travel, difficult to access a building. There's a certain convenient and cost-saving aspect of being able to remotely commission a system. And so this is one of the options that we offer. And also, quite frankly, I mean, the complexity in many of the system, you know, lives right here. The cloud level, how do you effectively manage communication, manage the firmware updates of the devices, manage the traffic, what's happening, and the changes to the network that you would be making at once. So we have a very sophisticated cloud support as well. And again, I would highly recommend that any solution you're looking at, you make sure that you understand what capabilities come with it. Color management is something that over the past few years we've seen more requests for it. And so we have different ways to do it, from the more traditional static white type control, when you have one channel for the CCT or the color, and then another channel for the brightness. But we also have RGB, WW ways, so more sophisticated ways, more advanced ways to offer color management. And we actually work with a company called Luminetics, and they have a module that is supporting Avi-on. And so it's a nice way to offer more advanced capability when it comes to color management. And like I said, one of the beautiful thing about this technology platform, and we could have you could be walking around with a fixture and an app and be able to deliver this type of functionality without anything else behind. So we talked about the capabilities, and I want to share with you a few projects here that are actually speaking about the ability to not only deploy it, but deploy it safely. So Abbott Lab is a great example. Obviously, they are key to what's happening right now with COVID, and we wish them their continued success here. But in the case of Abbott Lab and Avi-on, we started with them on a few clean room projects, and the project really expanded in scale. And now we have over 4,000 devices deployed on site with Abbott, and we're not using any gateways, and everything works very well. So great case study for us. The other one to the right, General Dynamic, is an interesting one because it is this highly secure facility that I was referring to that needed to be approved by the Department of Defense. And so they're, manufacturing tank, and the environment can be very challenging for some traditional, lighting control system, right? Very noisy, a lot of metal in the space, and yet we've been able to deploy over 1,700 devices without the use of a gateway, and things are working very well. So, certainly, can be deployed in scale. and Bluetooth can also be a very secure platform. So this concludes my section, and so I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you. Tony?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. I see, let me see. We have some time right now to just go through a couple of questions for Avi-on before moving on to Synapse. And if we aren't able to get to your questions now, we'll be able to get to it at the end or reach out to you after. So Eric, I see a question here from a customer asking, is there a way for the system to send back reports on outages?
Is there a way to send back? Yes, there is a ways. There is ways, and so I absolutely would be happy to discuss that offline.
Okay, I'll pass you on the information. And also, what is the maximum amount of devices in a network mesh universe?
Again, it's a great question, right? They're not all built equal, and so even on Bluetooth, it's not because you're on Bluetooth mesh that your system is capable of scaling the same way. A lot of it comes with how do you manage traffic and communication. In our case, like I say, we've got several projects with over 3,000-4,000 devices on it, and everything is working very well. In other cases, you will find that some other technology, even though they might be using Bluetooth, might be limited to a few hundred devices. So they're all different in some ways.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. And now I'd like to turn the stage over to Mike at Synapse to discuss their technology.
Thank you, Sony. Real quick background on Synapse. So we are owned by a company called McWane, which is a privately held company, about $2.5 billion in sales, and primarily in industrial type manufacturing. We happen to be their tech arm, and they purchased us for a couple reasons. One is they wanted to be somewhere into the tech industry, but they were also looking for wireless technologies to start implementing in their factories as well. We essentially, at our heart, are a wireless company. We started from scratch developing a wireless network and selling that to different OEM players out there that were using it for different technologies. About 6 or 7 years ago, we made the decision to develop our own application, and we chose lighting controls as that application. Our primary function is to go into exterior and industrial applications, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the company has been around for quite a while. We today manage over 10,000 different luminaires that are out there, and we actually have deployed hundreds of thousands of our wireless radios out there. So we have a very sophisticated wireless technology. There we go. So the different applications that we're going to talk about today is the different types of luminaires, specifically with an exterior basis here. And when we get into exterior luminaires, we can manage anything from high wattage to very high luminaires. We control everything that's 0 to 10 dimmable, and we also have the ability to directly connect with Dolly drivers and use fixtures with Dolly and actually pull statistics out of those Dolly drivers. So there's a lot of management that we can do right into the fixtures as well. Some of the outdoor applications that we address today are parking lots and garages. We do a lot of pathway lighting, particularly since we have the ability to drive long distances with our radios. So these applications where somebody has a mile of pathways and so forth, we can manage those. We do a tremendous amount of sports facilities, and we have quite a few partners that address this marketplace. We do quite a bit of sophistication in there and being able to do dynamic scenes, do real-time management of the sports facilities and so forth. And then we also do a lot of colleges and schools because they have multiple applications, particularly when you get to the exterior side. The industrial IoT side, we will not talk about today. That's a 2-hour conversation in and of itself. We're very focused on that end of the marketplace, but we're not going to address that today. So the basis of what we do is what we call our Simply Snap Mesh Network. And the advantages of what we really built into this thing is this is a 2.4 radio network, and we started down the Zigbee path, but started to realize very quickly that Zigbee has a tremendous amount of limitations on how you can scale a network and the amount of traffic that it puts onto the network, because it essentially has to touch lots of different types of devices. So it's a very busy, crowded network. And so what we did is we designed our own Zigbee network, or not Zigbee, but we designed our own mesh network and got around a lot of the limitations. Some of the advantages we have to doing that is we can actually get gateway devices on gateways up to 1,000 devices onto a single gateway, and we can put multiple gateways within the network. We've also done quite a few things in assuring the reliability of the network. So we developed a lot of tools where you can actually measure the quality of the signal in between devices. And so if you start having problems with communications, with trees growing and different things like that, or all of a sudden somebody decides they're going to put some buildings up right in the middle of your parking lot, we actually can go in and route around a lot of these problems and actually find the problems remotely instead of having to go out there and truck roll onto the sites. The basis of our system is a head-end gateway, and this gateway can either be installed inside of a building. We often put them in server rooms or electrical rooms. We also have the ability to put this into an NEMA-rated box, because we have a lot of customers that do not have that ability to put it inside, so you can actually mount it on the exterior of a building or someplace remotely. The main limitation on this is that we typically like to have within 1,000 feet of the first controller before we start talking out to the mesh network. So we only need to talk to one controller before the system starts talking together. What's also nice with this design that we've done is we've pushed the intelligence out into the remote devices. So if this gateway happens to fail, everything continues to function on a normal basis. And so it's pretty robust as far as reliability as that is concerned. Now, as far as communication to this device, every gateway is shipped with a cellular modem, so they have the ability to talk to it cellular. If we don't have the opportunity to get Ethernet into the device, there is an Ethernet connection here. And there's also a Wi-Fi connection in here. And what we do is we actually create our own Wi-Fi network. And so this allows the customer to be able to talk to the gateways with all of their phones or PCs or the devices without having to go through a backbone Ethernet network. We have a lot of times where a customer just doesn't want to have anything connected into their backbone. And so this allows it to function as a standalone out into the lot. We also manage, this can be run as a standalone system, but we also have a fairly sophisticated cloud network. We have a lot of customers that have lots of different locations. Target would be a good example of that, which has well over 100 locations, and they manage everything up off of our cloud network, so that way they can go from one web page and actually see all of their different locations. So this can be either way. It can either be standalone and you don't need to touch the cloud, or you can actually use our cloud services. So the devices that we use to actually control the luminaires, we have multiple devices here. The first we call a bolt-on device, DIM 250, and this device is a 20 amp rated controller, and this is actually put in between the power and the luminaire. So we have a full contactor in here, and we control full power on and off. This device has the ability to meter, and it also has, but there is no memory. Again, what we're doing is we're taking the memory for this and shove it into the gateways, but we can meter everything. And this works really well where we have somebody that has, let's say, 4 fixtures on top of a pole. We have the ability to put this in the pole and actually daisy chain and control all 4 fixtures with one controller. We do have some customers that actually will put this inside of the fixture if it happens to fit and it's engineered ahead of time. But this is nice to be able to do it as a bolt-on to what's already out there. We've also got what we call an embedded controller, and this comes in a couple flavors. It takes quite a bit of engineering to get one into the fixture. There's actually about 60 fixtures out there that have this integrated into the fixture. I can control the light either 0 to 10 with this, or I can control it through the dolly driver. So you can power this with 24 volt. And if I'm doing that, connecting off the dolly driver, all of that data that dolly happens to give us, which is quite extensive, and we happen to be on the board of the dolly development, and so we can give you a lot more statistics right into the fixture, as well as what's going on with power and things like that. And then the third way we have to actually control your fixtures, and you see these all the time, and that's a traditional twist lock. The traditional twist lock functions very similar to the bolt-on device. What's different with the twist lock, though, is I do have the ability with the twist lock to actually control 347 to 480 volt fixtures that are out there. I cannot do that with the bolt-on. With the embedded, it could be done if you were to install a dolly driver that is 480 volt. So the software, what we did when we designed the software here is we essentially looked at a lot of the different systems that were in the marketplace and saw the sophistication that was in them. And we decided that, you know, we've got to make this much more simpler to use. And so we designed a very simplistic interface, and essentially somebody can actually go in and actually start playing with this without really any training. They can get really good with it within an hour or two of training. And you have the ability to control individual fixtures. You can control poles. You can control complete zones, you know, the entire site. And again, as we talked about, if this goes up into the cloud, you can control multiple sites from this. It's a very simplistic software to use, and without going into a full demo on it, you know, and if you would like to see that, please contact us and we can give you a full demo on the software package of this. What we've also done is spent quite a bit of time developing reports. This happens to be, and we started this process about 2 years ago, and it seems to be more and more of an issue, particularly as DLC is starting to ask for reports for the highest level of the rebate. And the latest one happens to be you have to have 30 days worth of reports. So we have the ability to run reports, even if it is a standalone system. The limitation on a standalone system is the amount of memory that the gateways have. So you have about 2 weeks of data there. If you happen to connect with our cloud, we maintain that for basically forever, for a couple of years. And so you can run extensive reports over extensive periods of time. And you can actually run these reports, and you can manage things as simple as I just want to see what the total management or what the total power take is, or I can even go down and manage things like how much energy am I saving using daylight harvesting, or how much energy am I using with motion sensors and different devices like that. So you can take almost any device over any period of time in almost any type of a zone and actually run a report on it and see what your energy savings are, or to see where your biggest energy draw is, so you can go out there and manage it more effectively. As far as installation and commissioning, we're very similar to what Avi-on is doing here. We can do most of our systems remotely. We, as I mentioned, have thousands of these locations, so we've got this pretty well honed down. We do a full auto discovery of our network, so we can see all of our devices once they are installed. And we can manage doing most of these installations through a remote capability. We also have another program that we call Helping Hands. We have some customers that do want some verification on site, even though we're doing the remote commissioning. So we can actually put people on site just to do that piece of it. And that comes into effect sometimes when they want to do some daylight harvesting or something a little more sophisticated. And we also have a full on-site team that goes around the country and does more of the complex installations. We run into this a lot when we're doing some of the complex IoT applications and different things like that. So our process is to simplify this as much as we can for your customer and give them options to make them comfortable. You will have some customers that just demand somebody be on site, so we have that capability. And others, I just want to make it as cost effective as possible, which is the ability to do it remotely.
Thank you very much, Mike. Now I'll take back control on this. And we have some questions for you here. Is the software based or PC server based specifically for commissioning?
It is. It's also a managed. Well, the gateway is for collecting data, manipulating that data. If you want to run reports out of it, it is also used if I want to make adds, moves, and changes into the network. So most of our customers are using their phone to connect into the gateway, and they will use the gateway to make the changes. But once the devices are commissioned, they are intelligent devices with memory, so I don't have to, that's why I say if the gateway happened to go away, everything continues to function on a normal basis.
Perfect. And let's see. Are these devices or lines compatible with residential applications?
I mean, you could really control anything that has, you can control with a contactor, or you could go out there and 0 to 10 dim. Typically where we get into residential is if somebody has private tennis courts or something of that nature. But we're more into the higher end industrial side is really our sweet spot.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. This concludes our presentation today. We'll be able to get to your questions at the end of this or later via email. Now I'd like to turn over to Hector to close out and to get any final questions.
All right, great, Sony, and thank you so much for that informative webinar, guys. That was outstanding. As you can see here on our last slide, you have all of our contact information, phone numbers. We work transparently with Synapse and Avi-on, so any questions, either go directly to them or you can go directly through George. And we look forward to working with each and every one of you and our partners. And again, I want to thank Synapse and Avi-on for kind of leading the charge here and kind of informing everybody on the different types of technologies that are out there. So we continue to move forward. And Sony, I guess I want to bounce back to you. Are there any other questions that we can answer at this time before we close out?
Yeah, I see a lot of the questions are specific, Hector, so it'll be best if we reach out to them after this webinar to be able to give a more in-depth response.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you found this informative and look forward to our next webinar in our series of several. Thank you again. Thank you, Sony.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you, Hector, for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Great day.
Bye-bye.